do you think, though, fans are impatient with this team?
It's been 4 years. Troy Weaver started rebuilding in 2020, and he had 3 draft picks. And Sadiq Bey is the only one that's not here from the 2020 class, and Saban Lee. Saban Lee's in Phoenix, I believe, and Sadiq Bey's in Atlanta, and Sadiq Bey's killing it in a limited role with the Hawks because they know how to properly use him. So shout out to Sadiq. I think if Killian Hayes was the 16th pick versus the 7th pick, fans wouldn't be on his ass. I really do. That's just been my take on it. If he wasn't the 7th pick, fans probably wouldn't be on his ass the way that they are. Because, the whole Halliburton thing. But I thought the 2021 draft was a good draft. You get Cade Cunningham. I believe you drafted Bulsa Capravisa, who's no longer with the team. He's with the Clippers. They have his rights. He doesn't play with the Clippers. You got Isaiah Livers, and you got one more person I'm forgetting. Oh, Luka Garza. Luka Garza's no longer with the Pistons. He's with the T-Wolves. So, obviously you win the lottery. You get the first overall pick. We get it. You get Cade Cunningham. You get the guy that you want to build the team around. Great. Next season, you get Jaden Ivey, who a lot of fans were disappointed that the Pistons fell in the draft, but you still got one of the better players at 5. You trade up for Duren. Great player. Okay, you're starting the build. You're getting those foundational pieces, and then we see this year, Pistons get screwed in the lottery again. They were the worst team in basketball. They fall to 5. You get Asar Thompson. Great defender. I think a lot of Pistons fans are very happy with Asar Thompson, but I think they're still pissed off that the Pistons did fall. And you also trade up to get Marcus Sasser. Again, you're adding talent, but I think the reason why fans are so upset, and it has nothing to do with Troy Weaver's drafting, I think why they are upset is we get told the same old song and dance every year. We have cap flexibility. We're going to go out. We're going to get these big name free agents, and it doesn't happen. What did we get this year?
Joe Harris
and Monte Morris.
Well,
love Monte Morris, but Joe Harris is out for I guess the week or so. The year before, we had cap flexibility. We really didn't do anything. We didn't. We traded Jeremy Grant so we could get Jalen Duren to give us some cap flexibility, but we kind of get told the Pistons are going to have 30, 40 million in cap space, and we haven't made any significant progress in the win totals. I don't think fans would have a problem if the Pistons were rebuilding, but each and every year maybe they have 5 more wins or 3 more wins. And I get injuries happen, but they haven't made any progress in the win column since this rebuild. It's been really dark. It's almost very similar to the Sam Hinkie tanking 76ers, where they tanked for years until they got that franchise player in Joel Embiid. I'm not saying they're the same, but they're similar. And I think that's why Pistons fans are just kind of impatient with it. They want to win. They don't want to be in 15th place like they are right now. I get it. Injuries happen. Things happen. But I think at the end of the day, even the casual Piston fan wants to see them competing for at least a play-in spot.
Yeah, but I mean, man, I don't want to go back to what the Pistons had when Troy Weaver first got here, but that's still part of the story. You know what I mean? He really had nothing to work with, and it was basically like an expansion team with the talent that was on this team. We were rooting for Svi Mykhailiuk, to be something. We had almost no hope. It was one of the worst times to be a Pistons fans when those guys were on the team. And I guess I'm more patient with Troy because I know it's not a quick fix. They could go the route of the Houston Rockets where they go all in before they see what they have. But then you see what happens and, dude, you don't know what you have with the young guys. And now they're not playing. Now they're not developing. You might be winning a few more games, but is it worth it in the long term? Because the Houston Rockets aren't winning a championship this year. They're not a championship team. They might be a playoff team. They could be a play-in team. But if they had just waited a little bit longer to see what they had in Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, Sengun, Eason, all those guys, who knows where they would be at 4 or 5 years from now. I would rather continue to take the approach of the Pistons where, we're not going to win a ton of games, but we're going to be more competitive and we're going to keep building something for the future. And I will complain more next year if the Pistons start off slowly and they struggle throughout the year. I'll have more of a problem with it next year. But this year, for me, it's all about seeing what Cade Cunningham can do. What's the potential of him? Is he going to be a top 25 player in the NBA? Because, again, if he looks to be a top 25 player, you can make some serious moves this offseason to build around him. And
now, I understand that. I do want to defend Troy Weaver in this aspect. The team's been injured and you don't know what you have.
Yeah.
So it could be premature of trying to go out. Like, even though the Rockets were in a similar situation as the Pistons, they actually went out and overpaid for free agents, and it's paying off for them. Like, they're playing really good ball with Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks. Like, you see what a impactful veteran can do for a young rebuilding team. And they hired one of the best coaches in the NBA in Udoka. I think that's what the Pistons thought that they were going to do this offseason, but it didn't happen. And like I said, I get it from Troy's end. I do want to give Ben credit. He did mention about Troy Weaver. And just like I've always had this with him because I think he's really good at drafting. I will say that.
Yeah.
But the one thing I think Troy is not the best at is when you sign a player, he holds on to the player too long and they lose the value. He said, Anthony, you also have to bring up turning down Derrick Rose for Caruso and draft picks. He botched that. Yeah, that's the one thing where I will agree with the fans in the chat that I think sometimes when Troy does go out and sign a player, he holds onto them for too long, and we don't get maximum value back for the assets that maybe we want to trade or the assets that we have on the team. I do agree with that, but like I said, no GM is perfect. I will say Troy is probably one of the better GMs we've had in terms of just evaluating talent and drafting. Yeah. I think he's done a really good job, and the Pistons really haven't had that since Trader Jack in the 80s with the Bad Boys. Love Joe Dumars, but he missed a lot of draft picks, but he also hit on a couple, the Middletons of the world and everything like that. But I don't want to get too deep into this. I don't want this podcast to be depressing. But I think that's just from what talking to fans why they're so pissed off, because the rebuild started in 2020. It's 2023, and we haven't seen any progress in the win column.